Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long time, but welcome back to Mr. J's Big Book of Movies, where my quest is to find the best movies in the land to put into my Big Book of Movies. What is the Big Book of Movies? The Big Book of Movies is a personal collection of films I feel should be immortalized for what they are. What does it take to get into the Big Book? That's what we do every Saturday here to find out. We finally began season 2. That's right, and it's Black History Month. So we're going to be reviewing some movies about Black history, quote unquote. But what I'm going to be focusing on are 4 movies that I've never seen people do a review on. Some are going to be animated, some are going to be about real events, and some are not. But today we're going to be looking at one of them that has to do with animation. And we're going to be talking about The Princess and the Frog. The Disney version of The Princess and the Frog was released December 11th, 2009, and was directed by Ron Clements and John Musker. IMDb states that a waitress desperate to fulfill her dreams as a restaurant owner is set on a journey to turn a frog back into a human being, but has to face the same problem after she kisses him. Now, yes, this is the plot of the movie, but let me give you guys a little history lesson. Once upon a time, 2 brothers decided to gather a whole bunch of old wives' tales into a book. Thus, the Brothers Grimm were born. One of these stories is called The Frog Prince. Now, what happens here is a very simple story, that a young princess was playing with a ball and dropped it in a fountain. A frog came up to her and was like, I can get that ball for you, but you have to be nice to me. So she's like, whatever. He goes down, gets the ball, and it's like, all right, you owe me. So, freaking out, she runs back to her castle. And her father's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then she's like, well, I dropped my ball in a fountain. A frog got it for me, and now I have to be nice to him. And then he's like, so be nice to him. So, that night at dinner, he knocks on the door, and the king's like, let him in. So the frog's like, yo, put me next to you while you eat your dinner. And then the princess is like, fine. And then they eat dinner together, and then it's time for her to go to bed. And he's like, put me on your pillow so I can sleep next to you. And then she's like, fine, whatever. So this happens for 3 nights. And on the 3rd night, when she wakes up in the morning, she finds a prince laying next to him, and she's like, oh, what the fuck's going on? And he was like, I was under a curse. I had to have someone be nice to me for 3 nights, and then I was able to turn back into a human. And because he learned the lesson that he was punished by, that the whole, inner beauty thing, that he was able to remain a human, and thus they got married. So this was the influence of another book, which is The Princess Frog. And that is what this movie is inspired by. Starting at the top of the list, as far as the rewatch factor, I give this movie a 4. To me, this is an instant Disney classic, and I also feel it's very underappreciated. The reason why I'm reviewing this during Black History Month is Tiana happens to be the first African-American Disney princess. So applause to you for breaking the color barrier during the Disney animation era. I'm going to wait for Storyline to give a lot more in detail about the problems I have with the film. But specifically with the rewatch factor, I definitely give this movie a 4. Instant classic. If you've never seen it, shame on you. Take a look at it and have some fun with it. Now, as far as storyline goes, I feel it's very funny. One thing that Disney won't do is they won't call you the N-word right to your face, but they'll put in context clues about what's going on. There's a character that has a newspaper, and if you pause it in time, you can see that this movie takes place in 1927. All right? Now, why is that important? Because it takes place during segregation. And this guy. No. This guy. Yeah. Jim Crow times. So that means everything is segregated. And you might say, well, not all parts were segregated. Well, let's not forget that Brown versus Board of Education didn't happen until the 50s. Also at the beginning of the movie, you can see the main character's mother go on a trolley and see how big and luxurious the houses are on the white side of the neighborhood. And when she gets down to her side of the neighborhood, how small and rinky-dink the houses are. So that's their way of showing that, yeah, there's segregation during the time. Yes, that African Americans were worse off than whites in this time. But then there's a diner where both black and white customers go. And I highly doubt that would even be possible in 1927. So with that being my only flaw of dislike about this movie, I'm going to let that one slide, pretty much because of the charm of it. But I do like the fact that they did try, and they didn't. Oh, there's another part. That was real big and a big slap in the face about the whole segregatory times. There's a scene where Tiana finally gets the down payment for her restaurant, and apparently someone else was able to pay for the lot in full. And they say, and I quote, "Someone of your background wouldn't be able to maintain it," end quote. So are they talking about her being a woman? Are they talking about her being black? Are they talking about her being a black woman? So it's just like the answer to all of them is yes. It's all three of them. You know, what does a woman, a black woman, know about running a business anyway? How dare you? How dare you even try to come to me with this? It's just, it was so much of a how dare you. It almost made me want to stop watching the movie. But because of the charm that this movie has, you know, I pushed through it and was able to put that aside. So storyline, I do give a 4. But with those flaws, you know, those are very big things that happen in the United States for African Americans. But I do like seeing a black woman prevail. Next up, we have characters. Although only 3 of them were very dominant, you really don't know the names of a lot of the other characters. I do give characters a 4 because I do enjoy the character development, but most of the characters were throwaway characters. I mean, we have Tiana, she fucking rocked. You have Ramon, who's the Firefly, and as adorable as the alligator crocodile, I don't know his name. And you have the Shadow Man, who actually had a name, but I don't know what it is. I don't know what the name of Prince Avin's henchman butler was. I don't know his name, but I know who Prince Avin is. And I don't know if they even say what Tiana's mother's name is. So, you gotta love Mama Odie. Everyone loves Mama Odie. She's hilarious. But even though I remember half the characters' names, I don't even remember Tiana's best friend's name or her dad, you know. But the fact that I know less than half of their names, yet the character development of the main characters is what you're here for. And the sidekick actually dies. That's unheard of in Disney movies. So I feel it breaks itself even and gives itself a 1-up. And one thing that I've never heard anyone talk about when reviewing this movie is how Raymond, when he dies, he comes the second star from the right. So that makes me wonder how this falls into the timeline of Disney, how everyone's trying to compete this timeline. Aside from the segregation, the appearance I give a 4. The invisible segregation, I don't know, it kind of bothers me. If you're gonna, if you're gonna teach people about history, if you're gonna teach people about U.S. history, and if you're gonna make a story about African Americans and their perseverance, why don't you tell the full story? There's one thing about films about African Americans that you're gonna see in the month of February and hopefully beyond, that a lot of them are tragic, and how we have to come from nothing and build ourselves up to something. And this young lady, all she wanted to do was have a restaurant, and show reality. But other than that, other than the fact that everyone got along, which wasn't even possible, and I'm surprised that they do, I give appearance a 4. The CGI is a little off, so I'm not going to give perfection, but it is a great attempt. They did use some really good CGI. The only gripes that I have is some of the trees look kind of weird, and when the fireflies were all moving together, they looked like they were all moving in one big block, and they weren't freely moving themselves. So that's why I give the points off for a 4. But other than that, it's a very good-looking movie. Finally, we have Enjoyment. Enjoyment gets a 5, and there's no surprise with that one. I really did enjoy this movie. You see a lot more watching it a second time, and that's why I was able to give so much deeper of critique the second time I watched this movie than the first time. But I really do enjoy this movie. It still holds up. I give it a 5 still, and I really don't have a problem with giving the movie a 5. So last but not least, what comes of The Princess and the Frog? Well, what we do is we add up the 5 categories, because the 5 categories equals a score, and that score equals a grade. And with the rewatch factor being a 4, the storyline being a 4, the characters being a 4, and the enjoyment being a 4, and the appearance being a 4, so in the wrong order. But that score equals a 21. That 21 equals an A. I agree with that. This is an A movie. People should give it more of a chance than what they have and enjoy this movie. So the biggest question is, does The Princess and the Frog get into the big book of movies? I'm not even going to do this as suspense. It sure as hell does. Well, that's all the time we have here on Mr. J's Big Book of Movies. It feels so great to be back. And we're going to hit these movies up every Saturday here on YouTube, Mr. J's Big Book of Movies. Don't forget to listen to our podcast, Eye for an Eye with Mr. J, episodes every Tuesday and Thursday. Visit our Facebook fan page at Eye for Mr. J, our Twitter page, Eye for an Eye, spelled just like the podcast. If you have any questions or concerns or ideas, you can email me directly, mws_@yahoo.com, or below. Comments, concerns, questions, and subscribe. Do it below. That's what it's there for. And as far as I'm concerned, this chapter is now closed.